DEFCON Cloud Village for having me here. We are going to talk about CSPM2CloudTrail. My name is Rodrigo Montoro. My handle is Spooker, and my Twitter is Spooker Labs. I live in south of Brazil, in Florianopolis, and I work at Tempest Security as research and threat detection engineer. The motivation behind this research is something we that we need to improve our cloud detection in our security operations center. And since you have a lot of different customers, we start to figure out like how we could do something that will fit in mostly all the customer without needing a lot of context. And so when you start to think and brainstorm about that, we get we get splitted in two different parts. Like so you have the threat detection, that's something more complex, I could not, and something related about misconfiguration, and that's something more straight to the point. And our agenda, like we are just do a brief review about the cloud attacks, CloudTrail and CSPM, a very short overview, and talked about the research and some future work we are figure out to do. And so cloud attacks, like I think like when you are on premise, we have like a kind of perimeter, and this perimeter is something that make things inside the perimeter safe. Like you could do a lot of bad configuration, not follow hardening stuff, but inside your perimeter, that's let's call like you have a firewall and have the internal and the external part. You have your data, your apps, your servers, your containers, or whatever, and I could not access from the external part unless I have some access and all the other things. But I'm comparing like something by default. Like if I open a server, I pick some share in my server and open to Anonymous, for example. I could not access from outside by default. And companies are doing and migrating to the cloud. So what they are mostly doing, they are doing what we call lift and shift. Like they work on the same way they work on premise, and they put everything on instance and other things. And they mostly doesn't work with the cloud native stuff in the first instance. But the problem with that that they are doing the lift and shift of the security, of the protections, of the data source that they need to monitor. And when you are moving to the cloud, you have a new attack surface. A new attack surface is born. And what is this new attack surface? That is really, really important to monitor. That if you're on the cloud, if you're in the cloud, like is the most important part to monitor, is the AWS API or the control plane. And doesn't matter like if you are a DevOps guy, some automation, or the malicious guy, you could from there do a lot of things. You could access the information. You could change the infrastructure. You could open stuff. You could like start something, some crypto mining and all that things. Like you have control, especially because we're not going to talk about that, like the over permissive policy, and that's another subject to talk another day, but that's one of the main problems in the cloud. And so that's being said, like we have something as I mentioned before, like, and so you have the threat detections to this specific data source, and you have the misconfiguration detection. And the threat detection is something, as I said before, is something a bit more complex, and we are trying something about like a kind of chain, attack chain, like the user will log it from somewhere different, maybe try some enumeration, from enumeration you have a privilege escalation, and so you do this filtration. And so you probably need to have some kind of combination of acts to figure out like it's attack or not, and something like simulate a cool framework and see what's happened. And we have the misconfiguration detection. And this misconfiguration detection, if you pick the right fields and information, it's something more one-to-one, like one event you could probably have a detection. And That's where we are fitting our research. And there is three type of activities you could say. And those activities will be the good, the regular guy using, doing good things, following the baselines, using the best practice, and so on. And so you have the bad intentional, something like you lick a key, and from the key you start to do some while you have access to do, like you could access some information, try to provide escalation and other things. And you have the bad non-intentional. And the bad non-intentional is where the dangerous lives, because it's something like the guys that's supposed to have access and are working on their daily job doing something that's not following the best practice. And the our our main goal here it's exactly on that, because like if you try to find a misconfiguration here, you'll probably find for bad intention too, because sometimes they're going to open something or do some things that is the same, but we don't want stuff to begin wrong. And so like this kind of detection is cool, and that's why it's something most almost in real time. And so when you do that, you're opening your account for other people, other access or something else, doesn't matter. And there is two kinds of misconfiguration. Some misconfiguration that will provide direct access. You need nothing to access that, and could be something like an S3 bucket, or a snapshot, EBS snapshot. Could be a security group that you open a port to a server that's running in some instance that has no authorization and or no authentication, and they will have access. And so this kind of stuff, open your account to the root, direct access. I don't need nothing more. And you have like the second stage attack, and you need another vector. And this vector could be like access to EC2 instance, a server request forgery, an access key, or a user and password. Like yesterday, Felipe Esposa, Proteus, talked about a lot of different ways to find like some endpoints that are public based on research that AWS that could be exposable. And this kind of thing, most of the things he told like fits on the second stage, like you have the endpoint open, but probably for Redshift or for RDS, or you need like some extra thing like a user and pass. But he mentioned the two Elasticsearch open, so you have direct access and this kind of things. And so those three type of activities, the bad non-intentional is where we are looking for. And so to give context to that, like let's do a quick view about the CloudTrail. And so how CloudTrail work, mostly like whatever you do in your control plane, you have AWS management, you have the SDK that you could develop something, you have the CLI, that's very common tool to use. Any of them will connect to the API and execute the actions. And you have like almost 10,000 actions currently. And so like everything will be logged, most of everything, right, with some exceptions. And so it will be logged at CloudTrail. And how it works, it will record everything. It has a simple JSON format, and that's why it's near real time, because it has a delay to put S3 if you're using S3, and you have a lot of different fields. But mostly you have a JSON like that will tell you like who did that, when he did that, what he did, and this started to be interesting for detection, and from, and the what parameters. And so the combination of what and what parameters, it's where we're going to look and figure out, like, let's see if something is being created with the full misconfiguration, right? And so how we figure out like what we should do, what we should use. And so we start to look on the cloud security posture management tools, and we look at Cloudsploit, and Cloudsploit was created by Matthew Fuller. That the project, the company was acquired by Aqua Security. And one very interesting point, it's a multi-cloud CSPM. And what that means, that we are talking now about CSPM2CloudTrail, but you could just change to CSPM2Cloud detection stuff, because we are focused on AWS right now, but since it's multi-cloud, you could work with all the clouds, all the provider that he has. You understand why you want to use it, because you have a lot of data ready to go. And so if you look on the Cloudsploit checks, we have the Alibaba, we have AWS, we have Azure, GitHub, Google, Oracle. AWS more than 300, that's a great number, a lot of work to do. And not 100% could be converted in some detection. But this brings us like a total of 735 possible detections. That's a lot. Like if half of this works, that's great. We don't need more than that. And the check was like a week ago. And what is all those checks bring to us? A lot of metadata. And those metadata has a lot of information. You have a title, you have where the service is fits, like some description, some have some more information. You have link to documentations. You have the recommendation action, so you could figure out, oh, if this happened, like do that. And so like if you create some detections, you already have the answer. And you have the code that you could just look and figure out better what they are doing to validate that. And this brings us to CSPM2CloudTrail research. And this research is something we are putting a lot of times. We are working on to release that. And so like I read saying that we are going to release like in the middle of September, probably in our GitHub. So follow us. We have a bunch of cool information, and we are figuring out like the better way to do that. And that being said, like what you did, like the first stuff, like we create a CVS about the Cloudsploit information. We pick out the metadata. What you need to do here is to add the severity. So you could have like some better, like since you have like 306 checks on that time, we would like to have something much better, like for prioritization. So we create the severity, like. And based on our concepts, there is no magic rule here. And what it did, we start to do some cards, and so we have the rule, we have the severity, we have the impact. That's something we add, like because make because one important part we are talking about detection, like having more metadata, more information, make the security analyst's life easier, and that's very important. And so like from this, we want to create this. And this is the first version, like using Splunk, but our main goal is to have like some Sigma rules, so you could convert to any thing you're using. But since our customer most use Splunk, and our biggest engine inside the security operation is Splunk, so that's something that, what I'm going to do something different than that. And how we could like start to create the payloads to make sure that we could create detection. And so simulate all things. Let's create all AWS misconfiguration server could do. And for sure, we are using a lab account, and we are creating and storing. But that's kind of thing that could be nice to have a tool to simulate all this misconfiguration, and so could have something like CSPM to red team automation or something like that. That could be very nice, because you could simulate like if your enforcement is working, you could simulate like if your security operation team is working, if your detection is working, and this kind of thing. And just to show some proof of concept about the research that I said is still going, and start with AWS. We create a public S3 bucket detection we showed here a VPC endpoint exposed, the public EBS snapshot, and the trust account relationship. And the very first is talking about the public S3 bucket. And so there is two rules there, and so we create one like the detect the put bucket SL and the put bucket policy, just to show like if they are changing to something that's to anyone we are sure that we are detecting. Sure that when you're going to release, you'll probably have some extra rules that's not exactly related with this rule, but something like you could create a cross account, and so we could add a principal here like another AWS account, and so like for example that endgame tools, that's a nice tool for Kinard McQuaid works, and it will not make it public, it will make available to your account, and so this kind of less noisy stuff, and so that's something you need to pay attention. But here I just want to show the sample, and so like gray hat warfare is here to show you that you have a lot of information available already, and that's insane because I follow it like for a long time, and you say like AWS release a lot of tools to detect this, and it keep growing. That's insane. Now the VPC endpoints expose, and so here in this we will create like when you create a VPC, it will detect if the state principal and state research it's point to star. And sure, there is another vector, like because like we're talk here about when it's being created, but you could go there and use another action as the modify VPC endpoint, and we have the same result. And so as I said, we are going to focus on the most possible case that how you can expose something. And Scott Piper has a nice paper about that. I forgot to mention that. And there is a very great talk here talking about that. And Scott Piper has a paper about this too, not about only the exposable service, but about this too. So I really recommend you that open your mind to see like how dangerous this could be, because sometimes we don't have this. We could not figure out like how dangerous that could be. But this is kind of second stage. You cannot abuse this like if you are not inside the perimeter. Public snapshot, EBS snapshot. That's something like here is another sample. Like you could just modify the snapshot attribute. As far as I know, you could not create it public. You need to modify, so that will be probably the only way. And you add items group to all. But there is another modify that you permit an account, and so that's kind of thing that probably in the game abuse, and something that you need to have two rules. You have two rules, and I'm just showing one. And there is a great talk from Find Secrets and Public Exposed EBS, like from DEFCON 2 years ago. And the trust cross account rule. The trust cross account rule, it's very, very dangerous, because when you cross account with some account, you need to make sure that account is safer too, because like if you put excessive permission and cross account, like your account as safe as the permission you give to the non-safe account. And so that's something that you really need to understand and fix. I didn't write here, but last year's Alexandre Sierra did a talk here at Cloud Village, that the SaaSpocalypse, that he explained like for 40 minutes, something like that, how the cross account works and some ways to mitigate that. And so I really suggest you to watch that too. And that's being said, like some future work, we want to create more AWS detection. We start to GCP and Azure mapping too. And more focus on AWS, maybe some Athena queries, and provide Sigma rules. That's something we have in mind. But that could change, like when it starts to work, that could change. And special thanks to Celso from Tempest, Kaduka and ARP team, and Matthew Fuller for reviewing the call for papers. That helps a lot. And that's it, guys. Thank you very much for having me. Those my contacts, my Twitter handle, the company handle. I really suggest you, if you're interested about the content, to follow us, and so you will probably provide some good content in the near future. Thank you very much.